Let's make a fun paper shadow box for teacher appreciation. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my craft room. My name is Kelsey. I also call myself Dinosaur Mama. And today we are making a paper shadow box. It's a 3D paper apple with a monogram for your child's teacher. I am focusing on more 3D paper projects or just bigger Cricut projects in general, or cutting machine projects, I should say. So this is part of that ongoing series. I started with my paper flower bouquet, which I will link down below. I did that last week for, actually not even last week, I did that recently for Mother's Day. And I want to be focusing on bigger projects rather than small SVGs. I'm having a lot of fun making these, and I hope you're excited to join me on that journey. I will link everything you need below to create this. It's actually a very quick and simple project to put together. And I also will link the full blog posting where you can grab the free SVG file. Let's get started in Cricut Design Space. For this project, it's all in one SVG, so you don't need to upload a bunch of stuff. And you're going to start by ungrouping and then going over and grabbing your text box. I am using a font called Salmon Queen Sans. I downloaded this from Creative Fabrica, and I will link that below. It's a great font, and you could choose any font you want as long as it will connect to both sides. So just make sure that all of your letters are going to connect from top to bottom inside this white apple. This is going to be where you put your monogram, and all I'm doing is resizing it. So I unlocked it up top, and now I am resizing it to fit inside that rectangle. I'm going to grab everything and weld it, and now it's one piece. So now technically, if you want to, you can resize this. Make sure you're resizing everything uniformly if you're doing that. But I'm resizing and it's ready to send over. I'm just going to move my two outside pieces that make it 3D to the same sheet. So I'm going to use a 12 by 12 piece of paper for this. And now you can move around if you want to, like, I don't have Snap Mat because I'm on a desktop, but if you wanted to move like your leaf and your two things for your stem, you can do that as well. And I am going to cut everything out on medium cardstock. I like to use the fast mode, and you can use more pressure if you want to. It'll really depend on the material that you use. Jumping over to our assembly, this goes together relatively quickly, so I am just going to pull out all of my pieces. Now, the one thing I wish I would have done is assemble the front and the 3D part of the apple and then put the insert in, just because I can see the white from my insert, but at the end of the day, it still looks really good. I'm not like, it just doesn't take away from the project. I just think it would look a little cleaner if I had inserted this in after. So I'm just gluing the gold over my monogram piece so that it kind of stands out a little bit in that apple. And now you can start building your apple, or you can do what I did here. And on my blog post, you'll be able to see, I have two of these. You'll be able to see one where I glued this like this, and then the other one where I have it inside the apple. And so you could see the difference a little bit in the edges, that's all. So I'm just gluing these three together. Again, you could just do the two and then start on building the apple, but this is making the layers of the monogram. And now moving over, I'm going to grab my edge piece, so that has the zigzag on the side. And these are already perforated, so you don't have to worry about like a score line. And you're going to grab the one that has the perforation line down the middle. And we're going to start folding down on all of those perforation lines. So you can do this with both of those pieces, and make sure you're folding on that one piece in the center. That's going to be the bottom. You want to make sure you have that nice and crisp, as well as your two flaps on the edges that connect the two pieces together. So see, I'm folding here and then folding my edge piece down. And now this one's ready to go, and you can do the same for the other one. This is going to create our border, and if you've ever made a 3D letter, these are super similar to making a 3D letter. This kind of has the same vibe, and I'm going to probably be making more shapes like this. It's a really fun technique to work with. So now I'm going to glue these two strips together using some of my Barely Arts glue. I like to use Barely Arts for these 3D projects a lot, or hot glue, because it dries quickly and so you don't have to hold it for as long. And once that is dry, we can start adding it onto the front of our apple. I want to work with the front because the back is, no one's going to look at it, honestly. So like, I'd rather it just be really crisp in the front and clean. And so I'm going to work in sections. So I'm going to start with my bottom piece, and that's where that fold is. So you'll see kind of a straight line along the bottom. Make sure you're putting that fold with the straight line down there. And then I'm attaching it as close to the bottom as possible. And I'm going to work in small sections all the way around my apple. So as you see, I'm just kind of holding it, making sure that it's really lined up nice because you want it to be as flat as possible to the front. And I am holding it there until it is set. As for our next part, we're just going to work our way around the apple. And I actually put the glue onto that front piece rather than all of those little notches. And I just worked around. Since no one's going to see the inside, you don't really need to worry about glue residue. Plus, the Bearly Arts glue dries clear, and I will link that below. It does dry super quick, so it's great to work with for these 3D projects. And I'm trying to keep this as close to the edge as possible and rounded. You want it to be kind of seamless, and that's why I said I wish I would have put the white parts on the inside. And again, you could see that difference over at my blog with the photos. And you're just going to work your way all the way around the apple. Even with those curves, you're going to go down and then back up. And use your glue and let it set before you work on the next section because you don't want it to shift. So I'm gluing, setting it, then moving on to the next section. Gluing, setting it, moving on to the next section. So take your time with this, with all your gluing, let it set. You will work around each one, go in that bend. Just take your time. That's all I could suggest is make sure that's lined up really nice. Look at the front. And this really does fit beautifully. So you're not going to have anything extra. It's not going to be too short. It should really fit along that edge perfect. So just keep moving along until you get to the end. And when you get to the end, you're going to want to have that flap that connects them on the inside. So make sure that's covered up because you don't want to see that. And this is kind of like the hardest part of all of it because you want to shift in that one flap and then make sure that you're gluing those two pieces together so that it's all cohesive on the edge. So just take your time going around, let things dry, push in here on the side, and then it lines up really nicely. And you'll take your glue, put it inside that flap, and then hold those together by pinching with your 2 fingers. For the back, I also worked in sections. This is going to be a little harder to line up. I tried just like shoving the whole thing on, like gluing all around and then just pressing it on, and that's not going to work. So you're going to want to work in sections again, put some glue on those notches, hold it down. You can even like open this and kind of press it together. I think I do that in a second here, and I just open it and I kind of like press these so that they are flush. And then I work around this whole back in sections, putting the glue on the notches rather than on the apple. And I am using textured paper on this one. I didn't use it on my initial go. I used just regular 65-pound paper. And so if you want the texture to be all around the apple, at least for my textured paper, it's only on one side. So you will have to mirror that backside if you want the texture to be all around the apple. I hope that makes sense, because if you cut it just the way it is, the texture is going to be on the inside. So that's what happened with me. I don't really mind it because then you can see the texture through the back, like through the monogram. So it's totally up to you. And as you see, I'm just working around in little sections with my glue and holding it and then letting it dry just like we did with the front. And just keep in mind, like, don't be hard on yourself. The back of this project is definitely going to be harder to line up than the front of this project. And again, if you've made 3D letters, you'll know that like lining these up it's just not easy because it's already glued down. You can't like stick your finger in it to line it up. And there is our apple shape. So I have that all done. And now I'm going to add on my leaf and my little stem. So for the leaf, I'm just doing like a little bit of glue on that edge. It's very thin. Think of like quilling. And then I have a little tab that I pushed back to help secure it down. And it's definitely easier after I did this to glue the stem and the leaf together, kind of like line it up to see how it fits onto the apple, and then glue those together rather than holding it to dry down with that little quilling piece. So I am gluing my 2 parts of my stem together. I did these in 2 different browns. and I'm going to place this on as even as possible. And the bottom of this also has a notch that you're going to fold backwards, and that's going to attach to the top of your apple. I had no trouble with these standing up straight, so they should stand up really well. Depending on the weight of the paper that you're using, I suggest a 60 or an 85 pound paper. No, a 65 or an 80 pound. Oh my God. Maybe I need some more sleep. And so I'm just gluing this on. And again, it's easier if you glue the stem and the leaf together and then do them together onto the apple. So just keep that in mind. I did mine a little bit backwards. You could do it the exact same way that I did it, but it is on there quite well actually after I have it completely set. Like I can pick it up from the stem and the leaf and it doesn't fall apart. And that is your whole 3D apple shadow box. Thank you for joining me as we made this 3D paper shadow box with your teacher's monogram in it. I hope you enjoyed making this as much as I enjoyed creating it. Don't forget to give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed this craft, and please subscribe if you want to continue to make more fun paper crafts with your Cricut. Stay crafty!